This is the last day of notes for this unit, and it's called 100 Years' War. And like most wars, they try and make it sound very interesting, so they call it 100 Years' War, even though it was closer to 116 years, but that is neither here nor there. Our past question, some of you might remember this from yesterday: which Spanish leaders led the end of the Reconquista and the Inquisition? See if you can find that in your notes. And also our present question, something you may not know, though is very popular in modern culture. Joan of Arc was eventually captured and accused of something before being put on trial and burned at the stake. That, of course, is witchcraft, which we will talk about later today. Please pay attention to what's on the notes, because this is testable material on Thursday, so please try your best and follow along for the next couple of slides. Thank you and good luck. We're beginning with the 100 Years' War, and during this 100 Years' War we see a constant change between France and England as they fight each other on who gets to be the King of France. As you can see there, from 1337 all the way up to 1453, it is not that they're going to fight entirely during this time, but only periodically from here and there. King Edward III of England was the son of the sister of the King of France, therefore his nephew, the King of France's nephew, and stated that he should be the next King of France. Of course, the French did not like the concept that this was portraying, and so they decided to claim their own King of France, called Philip VI. Eventually, they are going to go to war, they're going to fight each other, and the English are going to take a clear advantage to begin with by using something called a longbow. Now, if you've ever shot rubber bands at someone, you generally always go for the big rubber bands, right? Because those are going to have more force, they're going to have more oomph, because they can stretch farther and they can have more power. So the English are going to use these longbows, which are over 6 feet tall, and as they stretch them, as you can kind of see over in the picture on the right-hand side over there, they're going to be able to stretch them farther, and they're going to be so powerful they can even pierce through the metal armor of many of these soldiers. And so it was a very big help to those Englishmen, and they're going to be able to take over quite a bit of land, as you can see in that northern part of France on the map located on this slide. With the English in a clear advantage, the French needed something pretty impressive to turn these around, and that's going to come in the form of a very young woman. Pause here to finish the slide, and then continue when you're ready. That woman, of course, was Joan of Arc, who was a 17-year-old young peasant girl. She made her way into the court of Charles VII, who was the uncrowned King of France. So he didn't have the official support of all the Frenchmen. He just had the support of certain groups within France. And Joan of Arc came to him and said, "I wish to lead your army." And of course, they laughed at her. They thought this was ludicrous, but they were desperate for anything to help give them the advantage over the English. And so they are going to send her into battle, and she is going to claim some very important victories in that first year of being one of the leaders. Now, she wasn't general. She didn't plan out strategy. She didn't do that kind of stuff, but she was an inspiration. And as she fought, she was able to get these French soldiers to fight even harder, even better than they did before. Over the next year and a half, she was eventually captured and then handed over to the English, was accused of witchcraft, heresy, along with several other claims, and then eventually was condemned to death and burned at the stake. There are no relics of Joan of Arc because her entire body was thrown, or all of her ashes were thrown into the Seine, so that way there was nothing left of her. Afterwards, the Pope did a secondary trial and said that none of those things were true and that she was a holy martyr. And then she was eventually beatified in 1909 and declared a saint in 1920, so fairly recently. And she is known as being a patroness of France. So she plays a very important role in this 100 Years' War and helps turn the tides for the French soldiers. I'm going to pause here and let you finish this slide and continue when you're ready. The last part of the 100 Years' War comes with the Battle of Castillon, which is going to be a French victory. They begin using cannons. Now, if you ever know what a cannon uses, there are these giant cannonballs which have a lot more force than any type of bow and arrow. And so while a bow and arrow can kill 1, maybe 2 people at a time, these cannons can take out 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 people at a single shot. And so because of this decisive victory, they were able to end the war with a very, very strong French upper hand. Plus, then, several years later, the English are going to be fighting themselves in what we call the War of Roses, as the different houses of English lords try and fight over who gets to have the English throne. So they forget all about the French throne, and they're going to focus on fighting each other instead of the French. It takes all the way until 1495 that they signed the Treaty of Pecquigny, which states that the King of England will not ever be the King of France, that they renounce their claim to the French throne, and that they must remain separate from each other. And that, ladies, is the 100 Years' War. Pretty simple and to the point. For the rest of the class, please get out your study guides on a backpack and complete as much as you can during this unit by yourself. If you have questions, you can email me or we'll talk about it tomorrow in class. Thanks and have a great night.